I selected the discussion web to do today because we're studying editorial, and it's important for the kids to learn to discuss the opposing view in an editorial instead of just their side, to strengthen their argument. And the discussion web really forces them to think about there are two sides to the argument, because they have to come up with 3 yes reasons and 3 no reasons at least. So they have to think that both sides have equal arguments. And a lot of times the kids, especially when we're talking about something like human trafficking, the kids want to jump on the yes or the no bandwagon. For example, today we talked about, is human trafficking preventable? And of course they all wanted to jump on the yes. Yes, of course it is. But when they start thinking about it, there's a lot of reasons why no, it's not. And of course they all feel like we shouldn't give up, but it is a more difficult problem than they think of. And so those things those opinions end up in their editorials and strengthen their argument. So the discussion web is great for that. Yesterday we did a discourse protocol I call role playing. I gave each student, each group, a card with the story of a victim of trafficking, and they had to role play. So one person was the victim and 2 people were the traffickers, and they had to convince the victim to go with them. And I think it really opened the kids' eyes up to how this happens, because they think, of course I would never be trafficked, this could never happen to me. But they don't think about, if you were in this situation, one of the victims is his parents are alcoholics, and he works, but his parents take his money. So of course, you know, the kids use that. They say, if you come with us, your parents won't be able to take your money anymore. We'll give you all your money. And that really makes them think about, there are people in worse situations than we're in. And it really causes them to have a bigger worldview than they would otherwise. I think student collaboration is paramount to education at this point, because they learn better from each other. They get tired of hearing my voice. That's the obvious reasons. But also, they think of things that I couldn't think of because they think like each other. I don't think like a 12-year-old anymore, but the person sitting next to them does. And so they learn better from someone whose brain is working the same way theirs is. For example, Cameron last hour came up with, is human trafficking necessary? And he said no, because it's against the law. There wouldn't be a law, and I would have never thought that way. But he did. In his mind, the law is the law, and if there's a law against it, then it must not be necessary. And that was a good argument. That was a good point. And he came up with that because he talked it through with his peers whose brain works the same way he does. So I think it's so important, because I've only got so much in my head and in my mind. So why stop there? There's 32 kids in my classroom. I'd much rather them learn from 32 people than from one. So it makes the most sense for students to talk and learn from each other, and then they learn that skill of talking to other people, which that communication skill in the workforce today is so necessary. They have to be able to communicate, get their ideas across, and the only way to practice that is to talk to each other. So I think that's really important. I used to get hoarse the first few weeks of school and wouldn't know why, and I think it's because I talked all the time. And so the kids were always focused on me, and all of my lessons were very, okay, I'm going to teach you this, and then you're going to go practice it. And now I give them a snippet, and then I let them learn it. I let them run with it. I let them play a game. I let them talk to each other. And sometimes it's just little things. For example, if they have a worksheet for homework, instead of standing in front of the class and going over it, giving them the answers, now I play a game. I play a game where they stand up, move around, find a partner, and share answers. And I've got lots of games like that. Lots of discourse protocols allow you to do that. And so I'm not as tired. I'm more energized because I hear them giving each other answers. It's easier to assess whether they got it or not that way, because I can walk around and hear them talking to each other. So I definitely now, I let the students teach each other more than I teach the students, which I think is a lot more student focused than I was in the past.
Do you have any ELL students? English language learners?
This year I have a few who are observation only, meaning they have enough of the language under their belt. But I do. One of them was here in this class.
Do you find that talking in groups helps your English language learner? Can you just talk about that?
Oh, definitely. It's really important for them to talk in groups, because by the time they get to 7th grade, a lot of time their problems are just things like word usage or diction, or their subject-verb agreement will be off. So the more they can hear people not making those mistakes, the more they start putting it into their writing that way. A lot of them still will put their verb in front of their subject like they do in Spanish. And so the more they talk, And really, that's the only way to correct that. The only reason that people who speak English as their first language don't do that is because they've heard it forever. That's the way they heard it. That's the way they learned it. So the more they hear it and the more they use it, the better that becomes. And it also helps their confidence a lot, because in my classroom, I spend a lot of time creating an environment where everything is okay. No matter how you talk, it's okay. So when they're forced to talk out loud in a group and nobody makes fun of them, nobody laughs at them, everyone accepts them, they start to become more confident in talking out loud in a group, and then they learn those communication skills. So that's really important, because if they never say it out loud, they never learn that it's okay.